What's going on, YouTube? As you have noticed, my newest videos have been a lot different than the prior videos that I usually make, because now I'm talking about different subjects and not just about the church. And the last two videos I made were about Manson, and I think it's time to move on to another subject. The subject I'm moving on today is about serial killers. Serial killers have been the subject of a lot of morbid fascination for a very long time. And people, especially Americans, are just easily fascinated by morbid things. And anyone who tries to debate this argument simply just needs to take a look at the high ratings on talk shows, on Jerry Springer, about the high movie reviews and the amounts of money that horror films make. Forensic shows, things of that nature. People are just fascinated by odd things, and especially horrible things, because as Americans we like to be shocked. We like to know things that we know are going to upset us, but our curiosity just keeps us going and wanting more. Now, serial killers have been held in high regard by media and film alike. Ever since The Silence of the Lambs was released in 1991, films have really been obsessed with making a variety of different stories about serial killers. And there's been a film made about just about every serial killer, famous serial killer that you can imagine. Everyone from Ed Gein all the way up to Jeffrey Dahmer. But I've studied a lot about the crimes of certain serial killers and a variety of different other murderers, and I have come across in detail some of the things that they have done that sound like something that you wouldn't even see in a horror movie. And if you were to tell people about some of the things that some of these serial killers have done, you simply wouldn't believe it. It's just, I mean, it's too outrageous what serial killers do. And the scary thing about it is that they're right around the corner. Not just serial killers, but rapists and murderers. And we have it stuck in our heads that every crime that happens, every murder that happens, there's going to be someone that gets caught. But that's not true. There are millions of unsolved missing persons cases. And when you get on the internet and you go to a missing persons site, they often have a little section for unidentified murder victims. People that have been found on the side of the road or in the woods, in a grave, wherever. They have been murdered and they don't even know their identity, and oftentimes the body is so decomposed that they can't even get a decent facial shot. So what they'll do, if the body isn't too decomposed, is take a photograph of the face and post it up. So you're seeing pictures of corpse faces that have not been dressed up in any way. And another thing that scares the shit out of me is when they make these facial reconstructions that they do with the computer, or even what's more creepy, when they make a clay face reconstruction. That happens when they find a skeleton and they can't pin the skeleton to anybody, obviously. So what they do is they take the skull and they put clay on it and try to form a face. The artist just simply guesses at what type of hair the person may have had or what have you, and these facial reconstructions are horrendous. They look scary. And I've spent many hours just coasting through the internet reading about old murder cases. One of the creepiest ones I've come across was one from 1957, where a 4-year-old boy's body was found in a cardboard box next to a road. To this day, the identity of the boy is unknown. And they actually took photographs of the boy's battered face and posted them on a missing persons poster, and described the boy as being found and unidentified, and they didn't dress the face in any way. It was the boy's battered face, straight from the autopsy photos, which was extremely creepy. And I've studied about this case a lot, trying to, play detective in a way and try to figure out, what could be done to find out who this boy is. And I mean, there are thousands and millions of cases out there that are just very terrifying. At the same time, I'm fascinated with them, but I think all of us are fascinated with serial killers to a degree, and murder. But we don't realize just how close it can be. It can be right around the corner. And I mean, it's horrible to think that there are cases where somebody's mother, somebody's wife, somebody's friend, somebody's daughter They get off work one night like they've done 100 times, and they vanish off the face of the earth, and they're never seen again. And I mean, it's just a horrible thing to think about, but it could happen. And I guess the point of this video is to warn people, be careful. And here's something else, a murderer and a serial killer. We often think of a serial killer or a murderer as someone who is going to search for a girl who happens to be making a phone call at a phone booth, drive up behind her, run up and snatch her while she's screaming and throw her in the back of the car. That's usually not the case. Usually a serial killer, a murderer, or a rapist has a very polite face, a very nice smile. They're very clean. They look like a decent guy that you wouldn't be afraid of. They walk up to a girl and they say, "Listen, I'm having trouble getting home. I'm having car trouble. Could you mind giving me a lift? Could you mind letting me use your cell phone?" They tell them anything that they can tell them to get them over to the side, and when they're over to the side, they hit them on the head with a ratchet, throw them in the back of the car, take them out, and they're never heard from again. And it's just a terrifying thing to think of. I mean, there's so many cases where children would be playing in the park. The mother would turn around, turn back around, and their child is gone. 2 weeks later, the body's found in a ditch. It's a horrible thing, but it does happen, and so that's why we have to stay aware. And most people just choose to just not hear about it. You try to tell them about a murder case, they say, "I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to think about it." Sure, that's the common fault of Americans, is pretending like something didn't happen. When people are bothered by something, instead of facing it and trying to resolve it, they would rather pretend that it doesn't even exist. 9/11, for instance, when you talk about 9/11, people say, "No, let's just forget about it." Just almost immediately after 9/11 happened, people wanted to forget about it. They didn't want to think about it. Something comes along, hey, some kid walked into a college, shot 30 people. Let's think about it for a couple of days and then forget about it. Gone, over, done. So we can move on to the next tragedy. Chow, the name of the boy or young man that walked into Virginia Tech and shot 32 people, committed the most heinous act of school shooting in history. The second most heinous act occurred in 1966 when Charles Whitman shot, I think, 26 people in the University of Texas. And then, of course, third is Columbine. But this is the worst in history. This was the worst in history. We heard about it on the news for 2 days and then move on to the next thing. We forget too easily, and that's why we continue to be ravaged by horrendous crimes, because we don't want to think that they exist, but they do. So be careful and keep this in mind. Do not ever be naive enough to think that you know somebody. Most serial killers have wives, they have families, and their wives were completely oblivious to the fact that they were out murdering. They did it maybe on a weekday. They said, "Okay, honey, I'm going to work," but they actually called in sick, went cruising for a victim, found a victim, tortured them, murdered them, raped them, buried them in the woods, but they were home by 4 to eat their dinner and settle right back into their comfortable life without anybody knowing about it. This is what happens. So don't be a victim.